Okay, we're live, May 13. Wow, the Michael Jackson movie is out. I don't know if you've seen it. I haven't. I keep hearing about it. Uh, we have a great guest today. We can talk about IOUs and munis and all kinds of things. The AI, big data, you name it. But before we get going, let's have our own John Sibley Butler play some music.
Well, you know, I had a dream last night that you were here with me, lying by my side, so safe and warm. And we talked a while and shared a smile, and then we shared the dawn. But when you woke up, well, the dream, it was gone. I had been dreaming.
All right, all right. Well, the president is in China. Big deal. Everybody's talking about it. Entourage of CEOs went with him. BlackRock, Apple, Nvidia, Tesla, all kinds of folks. Should be an interesting 2 days to witness what happens. Maybe the war in Iran will get finished. In terms of tech news, the race of semiconductors continues. Memory, Anthropic, OpenAI. Anthropic released 10 agents for the financial sector. Perplexity released two new tools, including a bunch of agents for the financial sector. This thing is going like crazy. Um, and Obviously, the stock market continues to follow what's going on there. Everybody keeps talking about a bubble that needs to be bursting at some point. Oil continues to be super high, and inflation obviously continues to grow. Johnny, I think that we are living in two incredibly paradoxical times. I am continuing to be bullish about things. So, what say you?
I want to say you is me is that I think that I don't know. Are we at war? Are we not at war? I don't think nobody's going to go to a ship and as they did with World War II and World War One or the Civil War and say the war is over and sign a document. It appears to me it's a kind of conflict where people just declare that the end is over and is over. I see conflicts on the nightly news. I see conflicts from the administration. I hear that there will be no more violent bombings and etc. or indications of war, and you turn the television on and they're warring again. So the definition of the end of the war usually is okay. We went to the ship, we sit down and we sign a paper. Well, I don't think that's going to happen. On the other hand, one would expect that the price of petroleum and the price of gas would go up, given that that's at the very very center of the war. And the question to me is what effect is it having on the say the political arena in America? I think there's a balance of America strong again versus we have a lot of inflation, and I think that the two views are like this. I don't think anybody wants to mess with America now because America will respond in a right away and maybe blow them up or try to blow them off the face of the earth. But the reality is that with that comes the idea, very painful, that you're going to have inflation, and then couple that with all of the new technologies. And if we always say, well, it's the economy, stupid, the question is it an interaction effect now between the economy and the war? So we kind of limp along here from news media, from news reports to news reports. We kind of limp along with the stock market going up and down, and then the real economy of goods and services where people actually work, and not the electronic economy of the stock market. It is not good. Uh, there are jobs being created, new jobs are being created, but for the most part, it is perception that people will have about the future. Will there be enough of jobs? And of course, this happens every year, every other year with the new graduates. What does it look like for the graduates of whatever, whatever? And then we comment on that and we readjust. So I think there are a lot of readjustments going on. And remember, it's America as an idea, and that idea is that we can always come through different kinds of difficulties, and we can always solve these economic problems. And then you look at the companies. There are lots of mergers and acquisitions going on. There are a lot of creativity. There's a lot of investment in AI. And, as I said before on the program, the question is, will that investment pay off? That is, can we meet our pro formas, if you will, to get the investment back? And the last thing I want to comment on is the whole idea of how we see the future. That is, what does it take to be in the future? Everything from learning a trade, which we've always stressed that. College education, we've stressed that. But more importantly, the attitude and the immigration. So
Yeah.
we have immigration that's involved with education. We had our graduation at the University of Texas at Austin. A great graduation. Lots of the students were first generation college kids. 75% of the black graduates was of African descent, first generation with 3.8 GPAs. And so I think that we have always been, from the Civil War to the founding of the country. And what's different now is that we have another hegemony, which is China. And the reality is that in my lifetime, I had not seen another power, to go along with America. And I mean militarily, I mean socially, I mean economically. And the Chinese also have a future that they see, and they think that future is bright. So as the president goes to China, I think that there should be some conversations. But I think we have to realize now that we do have two hegemonies, if you will, two powers in the world. But I think America has the upper hand because of freedom. I think all of the companies, I taught at the University of Beijing and helped put their entrepreneurship stuff in China. And I think that the companies belong to the Communist Party, which is only about 100,000 people in China. But it is the Chinese people that bring the vigor, that bring the attitude, that bring the international competition, to bring that we discovered everything and gave it to Western society. And I think that is what America's up against. So it's a great time to be a scholar. It's a great time to write books. It's a great time to comment. So we have a lot going on. And in your area, the question is, are we going to run out of electricity given the electrification of America? Thank you.
That's right. That's right. And before I switch to Llewellyn, just a quick on geothermal startup Fervo Energy went into an IPO this morning. Their price popped 33%. I think geothermal. It's an interesting solution that should be more prevalent across the nation. So explanation why their IPO went really well. And also, just real quick, hacking continues to be a problem. Actually, ransomware hacked Foxconn in China, which is the biggest uh, electronic manufacturer for Apple, Google, and Nvidia. Interesting news there. Something else interesting, Amazon just launched a new AI shopping assistant from the search bar powered by Alexa. So now you can have your own agent doing shopping for you in Amazon. And Anthropic is shifting their gears to if, focus on small business in addition to their current efforts for the large businesses. So lots of stuff going on. Juliet, what say you?
Well, thank you. I think that the global situation is very precarious, and a lot depends on what comes out of China, but I'm not terribly hopeful. I read differing reports. There are conservatives who tend to think that Trump has gone to Beijing with the upper hand, but the majority of commentators, including myself, think that he's gone with very little to trade and that somebody will pay a high price for what he trades. It may be Taiwan, it may be other incursions into the South China Sea. China is in a very strong position because it has now dominates global supply chains in a great many things, including the electric utility, large power transformers, for example, and of course the precious and very hard to come by rare earths. Everybody will tell you they're not rare, except when you try to get them out of the ground, and the Chinese have done very well at that. But it's not just a case of getting them out of the ground. We're trying that around the world. Australia with some success. We've got a new mine in the US. But the real problem is processing. And even when the rare earths are mined elsewhere, they tend to be sent to China for processing. So the Chinese have a tremendous grip on the supply chain. In fact, it's a new dimension in international diplomacy and in international strong arming, that you can do it with a supply chain. They built up dependence on the supply chain over the decades, and we have rather encouraged that because they've had cheap goods, cheap services, and very reliable deliveries, which has put the world somewhat at a disadvantage. Right at the moment, we're coming to a crisis point. The world cannot go on without getting some oil, some natural gas through the Straits of Hormuz. It cannot go on for much longer. It has led to severe shortages, obviously, of oil in Asia, but also globally of fertilizers. And if we don't get the fertilizers globally, we're going to have global famine. We're going to have terrible food shortages, and food is going to be very expensive. We're already seeing in the US, which is not in any way as badly affected as many countries, we're seeing prices going up, inflation going up, and we may see shortages in some food stocks very soon. It is a very delicate moment in the international situation and in our relationship with other countries. And to my mind, we've not been helping it. Stupid things like the president putting out a posting overnight that Venezuela should be the 51st state. He's now sort of tried that on for Greenland, Canada, and now Venezuela. This only gives the impression that we're an imperial or a want-to-be imperial power, that we're unreliable, and the constant flow of unedited tweets that he sends out overnight is beginning to undermine both him as a serious person, but also to undermine our situation in the world, where the world does not think the American leader is serious or reliable. Not a good basis, and certainly not a good run-up to a critical summit in Beijing. I think we should be grateful to the Wall Street Journal, which has exposed how the tweeting is taking place, how he can do 55 posts in a night. It's with the help of a woman called Natalie Harp, and she is a former television and right-wing advocate. Before that, she went to two radical Christian universities, and he is now his right-hand man, and he's sending these bizarre statements, some of them, and many of them attacking his enemies, some of them just lies, out overnight with her help, and he's circumventing the entire communication structure of the White House, which has people, including his chief of staff, along. The reporting on this in the Wall Street Journal has been world-class, and I salute them for it. So, you can say that we've got a happy stock market, but it won't stay happy indefinitely. I also am very interested in what the Europeans are trying to do in regulating AI, or in a sense, deregulating it, because they want the AI companies, those that have established themselves as the gatekeepers to AI to be much more open, to move much closer to a commons. I've talked about this before, the need for an AI commons. If you think of the internet as a commons or the ocean as a commons, it is entirely reasonable to think that AI should be a commons rather than owned in a proprietorial way by the gatekeepers. And I think that will play out. It's a very interesting vision of the future, because the future is going to be very dominated by AI, and the institutions that we put in charge of it will become very dominating in our lives.
Sure, sure. Well, in order to introduce our guests, I wanted to catch up everybody with what's going on in Austin Energy. And Green Choice in February was announced that it was going to be expanded from being a wind program, primarily wind and renewable energy, to adding solar now. So solar comes into the picture, especially in Texas, with several partnerships there. And Austin Energy, also had announced in February that is adding a new substation called the Kramer Substation, a $25 million project to add significant capacity to the north of Austin in lieu of all those data centers that are preparing to come online. Austin Energy has also increased their goals for demand response, shooting for 275 megawatts of demand response by 2035. And they are also have increased their power partner thermostat program, something that we created a long time ago to manage thermostats. And their enrollment is boosting tremendously. Obviously, that's the thermostat program is attached in many ways to the demand response program. And then Austin is also launching a power partner battery program in a pilot phase at the beginning of it. I suspect that Austin Energy will be playing a more proactive role in what's going on in the distributed energy resource market in its service territory. And similarly, they have also uh, talked about asking for help. Apparently, the theft of copper has increased dramatically, and people are trying to steal copper wherever they can find it from the utility. I find that fascinating. And then the last thing that I think is interesting that maybe our guests can talk about is Austin Energy is adding a residential solar leasing program, and maybe this is something she's been working on, uh, where Austin Energy is no longer just a utility looking at somebody else like Sunrun sell solar panels and do a leasing for the customer at their home, but actually the utility getting into that business. So with that said, let me say welcome to Tatjana Woodbury, who is the Electric Reliability O&P Compliance Program Manager at Austin Energy, where she leads initiatives to ensure regulatory compliance and strengthen grid reliability. She holds a Ph.D. in electrical power systems from Texas A&M. Whoop! And previously, she served as a lead data scientist at Exelon Corporation, developing advanced machine learning and artificial intelligence applications to enhance electric distribution reliability and asset management. Welcome, Tanya.
Thank you, Andres. I'm so excited to join Digital Roundtable. I've been watching your videos from time to time, and it's always the most important and the most interesting topics being
Well,
discussed.
we're glad to have you. Maybe you can start by giving us a little bit of you are now with Austin Energy, but you were with Exelon. Maybe tell us a little bit about the dynamics of how are you finding your new challenges and compared to the old big, much bigger company, what can you share about the state of the industry? I mean, data centers everywhere, more grid, more power. What's going on?
Yeah. Well, let me first start by just adding to the list of exciting things happening in Austin Energy. And I got to start by saying we are hiring, especially for those new graduates from UT Austin and other universities. Please head out to Austin Energy career website, and there's really all kinds of roles, engineering, IT, whatever you can think of, and please apply. We're looking for new people. I currently don't have an opening on my team, but we may have some in the future. So if you see a position for a compliance analyst, please consider applying. Yeah, as you mentioned, I recently, actually, when we scheduled this talk, I was still at Exxon, and then in the meantime, I switched job and moved to Austin Energy. I'm very excited to join Austin Energy. It's been about a month now. And it's really been just a wonderful, welcoming environment, not just my team, but the entire Austin Energy community. So I'm really excited. It is different, as you know. Exxon Corporation it's a big corporation that has 6 utilities under it. So there's a lot of variety, but there's also a much larger workforce. So you're never kind of alone, and you always have a big team working on big projects. Where Austin Energy is kind of smaller than Exxon. So I think a lot of people are handling pretty big challenges by themselves, and there's really a lot of opportunity for learning and growth at Austin Energy. I'm very, very excited for the change. As you mentioned, I also kind of did a big shift where really in my career so far, I've mostly been focused on machine learning applications for electric power systems, for electric utilities. And now I would say I'm expanding, not changing it. I'm still in the similar domain, but I want to sort of dive more into regulatory compliance and work more on impacting the future of the network from also regulatory standpoint, point of view. Yeah, so very, very exciting. I think we promised to talk about grid resiliency. So I think maybe I'll start. That's something I spent a lot of years working on, and that was kind of my primary topic while I was at Exxon, but also the topic of my Ph.D. at Texas A&M. That's kind of where the whole big data and machine learning uses for improving power system resiliency started for me. Let me just kind of give some introduction for the audience so that we know what we're talking about. So what we're talking about, our goal is to have as little outages in the electric network as possible. And when we have outages, we want to restore as fast as possible. So that's kind of the resiliency part where outages will happen, infrastructure is outside, it's in the real world, there's lots of impacts, and we just have to be ready for when the outages happen, how to restore power as soon as possible. So that's kind of our goal. And we do measure our performances. All the utilities measure their performances and report in terms of frequency of outages and also duration of outages for the customers. And then in the last decade, universities started first doing research, and then it kind of got into the utility world, doing research in how to use machine learning and artificial intelligence to actually improve resiliency of the system. So how do we get ready for outages? How do we predict a number of outages we may have in the future? And how do we strategize quick restoration? So those are kind of the goals. And right now, in addition to humans dealing with emergency preparedness, we also have all of these tools. So we also have AI coming in and being there as an option that can help us in that. But this is a topic of research and development right now, where we do need to develop tools that are reliable and accurate and that are able to give emergency preparedness personnel confidence in their decisions. As you all know, this is a difficult problem. You can think about few days before the storm, we would get weather forecast. Weather forecast also is getting so much better over time. I gotta applaud the work of meteorologists. We're really getting amazing tools. And now with AI, there's even improvements in the accuracy of weather forecasts. So I'm very excited for that, but it's still not perfect. So 5 days in advance, you may know that the storm is coming. You may not know exactly how bad it will be. You also may not know how your infrastructure is going to react to it. So the first challenge is, how do we predict the amount of impact that we may experience during the event? There are tools, I would say, all over the country. There's vendors, universities, utilities working on developing tools to predict number of outages during upcoming event. So that's kind of all part of the manage events effort to improve the reliability and resiliency of the system. So we are seeing utilities implement tools to predict number of outages. This is very important because having some estimate of what's coming can really help emergency preparedness personnel make better decisions and make choices today that will kind of help them restore as quickly as possible, but not spend too much money. Because, if you spend too much money today on a storm, you may not have enough money for a bigger storm in a month. So we also want to be very, very intelligent about it. And I mentioned there's already a lot of effort in this. Let's talk about the data. So data is very important. We're at the age of AI, and really, I think digital transformation is the key in kind of making a reliable age of AI. Our AI needs data. You can think about it. We have our real world. We have events happening in our real world. And that's what we want to predict. We really always want to predict what's going to happen in real world. So over time, we take measurements and we collect data to describe what's happening in the real world. And that's what we digitize. So your digital data may have measurements that you collected from the field. They may have documentation that your personnel wrote down, describing events, describing actions. All of that ends up being a source of information for the machine learning algorithms and for the AI. And what's really important to understand is that AI is not actually learning from the real world. AI is learning from the data. So it is our responsibility to create data in a responsible way, to create data that's accurate and that's also will lead AI to making fair and accurate decisions. So we have to understand that there's still a lot of work that has to be done in the part of digitization part of the process. Where we want to collect more data, we want to collect data with higher accuracy, and we want to make sure that what AI is learning from will really allow it to make perfect decisions. And this will be ongoing work. I could say that definitely there was a huge progress with electric utilities on this topic in the last 20 years. But there's still work to be done, and we're working on it. One thing I want to mention about the emergency preparedness and predicting outages, So far, most of the tools that have been developed are focusing on using historical outage data and weather data. So we are learning from historical weather data, but also using weather forecasts to predict future impacts. I still see in the industry lack of using more information about our assets. So as you know, it's not just weather impacting where outages will happen, it's also where our infrastructure is vulnerable. So I think if we have any students doing research looking for future topics, I would like to encourage them to look into how do we add asset information, our information about how our infrastructure is aging, but also electrical measurements from the field. So all of that, I think one day will have to come together to really improve the performances of these machine learning algorithms. So that's kind of one thing I would like to see in the future. Because I think we're still not fully learning from the real world. We're still learning from the data that's missing some information. So we got to make sure we get all the information. And I think that will finally lead us to the path to providing accurate algorithms to deal with this. We also, one part is just knowing what to expect, how many outages we may expect during a big storm that's coming. But another thing is we need to develop good strategies for how to quickly restore from those outages. And that's another part of the process where utilities are starting to use machine learning to try to make better decisions. And this is, again, also a challenging problem. What's challenging here is that in the past, we didn't necessarily collect data having artificial intelligence and machine learning in mind. In the past, we didn't really expect that one day this will happen and we will have all of these tools we can use. So we are kind of struggling with collecting historical data that has all the information that the machine learning tool would need to use to make smart decision. Let me give some examples. I think historically speaking, we are very good at recording what happened, but not necessarily good at recording what we wish would have happened. So when you look at historical data about how utilities responded to certain events, you can see exactly what they did, how many contracting companies they hired, how many people went and did maintenance, how quickly they restored. But maybe what happened is not exactly what we wanted to happen. Sometimes we may want to have 50 crews to restore outages, but because of shortage, we end up with 40. So it may not be exactly the scenario that we wished that we would have chosen to do. Also, in some cases, weather forecasts may just be much more severe than what actually happens. So utilities would overstaff, and then we end up not having that many events. So we would end up paying for labor that doesn't even take place. So all of this gets recorded in the data. And historically, we would not necessarily flag it as this is overstaffing, this is understaffing. So when machine learning algorithms try to learn from historical data, they do not always have the best case scenario to learn from. And I think this is, in the future, we will be able to easily correct this just by adding some more information in the database. And now we are kind of at the age when we are talking to the AI and there's constant exchange of information. So AI is also going to be able to kind of adopt as we provide our comments and kind of learn from not just what happened, but also maybe what we wanted to happen and what would have, in the opinion of a subject matter expert, what would have been the best case scenario.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Let,
that.
let's get into some Q&A here and see where it leads us. You are incredibly knowledgeable about the journey of the grid of the future. So, Johnny?
It's very interesting. And in your summary, you forgot you got to do all of this very, very cheaply for the consumer. That is,
Yes,
as you do this.
yes. I
Well,
mean,
let's
that is a big constraint, and
yeah.
that is kind of one thing where we're trying. Um, there is a fixed budget, so
Mm-hmm.
you want to make sure that you use the money exactly where you need it,
Okay.
to use it to restore outages quickly and not just waste it.
Yeah. Well, I have three observations or questions, and I think we can decompose your great ideas, a great summary into in basically two ways. First of all, making sure that things don't go out, and by making sure that we don't have another. When the storm goes out, then you actually want to predict the amount of outages. Now, I'm from the great state of Louisiana, where hurricanes become our friends. We name them after our children, right? And so that's one question, and I think that's the historical question that's already been there. The next question, I think, is the amount of electricity, and with all of the research in my dealing and research in this area, that if we had certain kind of controls, better controls, then we can provide more and save more electricity. Because as we know, it's a commodity that disappears if we don't use it. So the question is, how do we be efficient with controls so that we don't lose a lot of it when we develop it? And I think that the controls that we use are the same controls, albeit with some different kinds of controls. But it's basically the same people pulling levers in a lot of places that we've used historically for 90 years, right? So that's my first question. How do you think about the controls? The second one relates to the data stuff. Remember, and my background is a data analysis and statistics and organization science and economics and sociology. And I'm glad that you understand that AI is not the data from physics.
Yeah.
That is, what we have to realize, and I've written many mathematical models to explain things, is they're based on what humans have produced, and humans will always change their mind. On the other hand, the historical data of physics is based on what God has produced, in the sense that whether it's I never had an interest in studying rocks, in studying the movement of the stars, and those kind of things that my folks in physics do. So you're exactly right. What we have to do is evaluate and realize this, that it's like the data we use with the stock market. We use the equations from physics to look at social phenomena, and people will change their mind. And when they change their mind overnight, things will change. But a rock will not change its mind. A planet will not change its mind. So my question to you is, I really would like to know how you sift through the human-created data that other people have taken as just real stuff, but it's all that we have. Even economics itself does not, in their equations, does not account for hurricanes. It's something that affects the economy, but has no effect on the economy, as my economists would say, as they look for equilibrium theory. But it's very interesting to me because we have always expressed this idea of when the physical sciences converge with the social sciences in terms of models. But it's like you said, your algorithms that we're using based on the data that Andreas created, that Luella created. I just got another lawsuit in my mailbox that said, they're not even quoting your books, Dr. Butler. I mean, there's so many lawsuits coming about people not quoting books. So I would like to just understand those two things, the controls, if you will, and how do you, without using how do you determine which data are real and which are not? Thank you.
Yeah. Let me talk about the second question, and then we'll come back to controls. Because yeah, I'm very actually passionate. I spend a lot of time thinking about how do we combine physics with AI to say so. Because we are, in the end, we're talking about electrical power system, and a lot of what's happening is just driven by physics. So, and I think just going straight to AI solution and focusing only on AI solution is not the answer. I think we kind of need to combine our deterministic and probabilistic approach. So we need both physics-based models, and in cases where we do not have physics-based model, that's where we can employ these probabilistic models. So I really, my approach is always to create a hybrid. If there is a part of the process where we have electrical measurements, where we have physics laws that guide how something works, we need to use that. There is no need for machine learning in that area.
Right.
We have deterministic models, and we can get a truth, accurate result. And then after we do that, there's still going to be certain areas where we have to use machine learning just because we don't have an accurate model. And that's really, it ends up being a hybrid where part of the work is done by a deterministic model, and then whatever is left, we will use, probabilities to figure out what may be the closest answer. It's never going to be 100% accurate, but in a lot of cases, we will be accurate. So I think that's kind of the key here that, and I am a little bit worried because I'm seeing new generation just dive into AI without looking into all the basics that we developed before the AI. So I just think we need to really spread the awareness that AI is something that comes on top. AI comes for problems where we do not have a deterministic solution.
I agree, Tanya. I think that AI summarizes what we've done in a very, very quick way. It is very, very efficient, and it would destroy many jobs.
Yeah.
I think our challenge, and it's really a challenge, in the models of healthcare and in what you do. I think our challenge, and I think it's a challenge in finance also. I think that we will always have financial, crises because our models are based not in physics, but it's based on people. But we assume that it's based on physics. And physics only have 2 or 3 models that's really downright good. So I think, but it was fascinating to me. I just find it absolutely fascinating because this is the only thing that we have. We have this data, and we can predict, but we have to separate, right, the prediction, as you said, based on the science, versus the prediction based on observation. To put it in a different paradigm, I can go ask questions through the centuries. When did the moon come up? When did the sun get hot? When was there an eclipse? And people give their opinions, right? But on the other hand, we have data because God does not lie, right? and it's not physics that, in academia, we might call it the physics envy. It's not physics envy, but your challenge is more interesting because, like you said, it has to bring together the models from human interaction, the models from the science. And what the models will do, being a Louisiana boy, is that it's going to tell us how many hurricanes, right, that's coming. But here's the deal. It's like earthquakes. I remember giving a paper in New York at a scientific meeting, and they asked me about prediction. I said, look, I can predict certain things, but I can't tell you about an earthquake, but I can tell you to be prepared for the earthquake. There's no reason for you not to be prepared for the earthquake. I can't tell you when it's going to happen. So you should stop saying stuff like, there's 80% of a chance that San Francisco would fall into the ocean. No, we just do not know. But what we can tell you is this. It's coming, and you better be prepared. And I think that is the signal and the noise, if you will, that you're in. I want you to make sure that you let me know that a storm is coming, so I am prepared. The fact that you missed the prediction does not surprise me. So I will turn it over to my distinguished colleague from the
Let's get
Northeast.
Llewellyn in here. Llewellyn.
From the Northeast of great universities and great predictive power who can't predict a damn thing.
Yeah. I can always predict that you will talk at great length.
Yes, I will. I usually get paid by the word, and so that's what I'm accustomed to. But of course,
you're getting paid. You're ahead of
I'm
me.
just a servant. I'm just a servant for Andreas. So I love to talk.
Let me ask.
But I got it from you, Andreas. I mean, I got it from you, Llewellyn. You love to talk too.
Let me ask Tanya some questions.
Yeah.
You're responsible for the interface with regulators. Different utilities have different structures, depending on their ownership. If they're rural electrics, if they're municipally owned, as yours is, or investor-owned, as your previous employer was. Who do you answer to as a regulator at Austin?
Well, at the end, we answer to the people of City of Austin. That's our top boss.
Do you have to go before the PUC, or is
yes,
it?
Let's talk about there is a number of regulatory bodies in the United States. You're probably familiar with FERC and NERC, who are providing a lot, most of the reliability rules and standards that we follow. In Texas is kind of very specific. It's kind of different from the rest of the United States because we have our own independent system operator, ERCOT, that also has their own protocols that we follow. And there's Texas RE that's kind of enforcing the rules coming from NERC. And there's also a Public Utility Commission, or in some state it's called Public Service Commission.
Yeah, you're right. Let me ask you. We've talked a lot about using AI for predictive purposes. What about operationally? At Austin Energy, has AI been used in the operational field? Have you handed some OT over to AI?
I honestly don't know. I'm too new. I still didn't get any information about that. Yeah. So I may get back to you next year if you call me back as a guest.
Sure.
Yeah.
I suspect not.
No. That would be my guess, but I don't want to say without asking around.
The Chief Information Officer at your colleague utility, San Antonio, CPS Energy, told me in a different broadcast on my own television program that he thought utilities were actually very far advanced in the use of AI and were not getting credit for it. Compared to the rest of the world, do you think utilities are far advanced or just beginning?
No, not compared to some other fields. I think we are still a little bit behind. There's definitely been lots of effort in the last decade. We do have some challenges with some of the machine learning solutions, and maybe I can talk a little bit about that. So as you mentioned, there's lots of regulation around electric utilities. There's lots of rules. And some of those rules are not necessarily built to enable uses of machine learning. I can give one example. So in the field of asset management, so that's actually the other coin. We have managing events, but we can also manage our assets in a way that would reduce number of outages in the network. So a lot of rules and regulations about managing assets are time-based and they follow periodic schedules. So it's typical to see a standard say, you need to trim your vegetation around power lines every 5 years or every 3 years. It's typical to see a standard say, you need to inspect your transformers every 5 years. So standards are built kind of, and that's, doing periodic inspections and maintenance doesn't guarantee that you will not have outages. In fact, we can do studies to evaluate from historical data how well that strategy has worked. But now, in recent years, there's a lot of development in predictive asset management, where we actually would choose to perform maintenance and inspection based on a risk score for equipment or a health score, doesn't matter how you want to look at it. And there is a challenge in adopting those models because of how the standards are organized.
In your earlier remarks, you implied that we have incomplete data for utilities, that we need more machine learning of utility requirements. What happens when we start getting data inputs from the rest of the world? Most of the data now that AI relies on is American data. When we start getting Chinese data and we start getting Indian data in very large quantities, will that affect the quality or what we know, or will it make no difference?
Yeah, I think for the industrial applications, we will have to be very careful to develop dedicated AI solutions for our field and also for our geographical location. So while in the general purpose AI, you can have data from all over the world, really, I think in the future, we need to focus to building more kind of domain-specific AI solutions that only have data that's relevant for our own case. So I think that will be the solution. So we really got to be careful about what we're feeding in there.
Thank you. As a final question in this series, Tanya, are there in the utility area data droughts? Are there large areas where there isn't adequate data to do the job at hand?
Yes, that is true. And that's, I think, something we need to, I would say, if you're an electric utility executive and you want to embrace the artificial intelligence future for your utility, spend a lot of time, 80% of your time, thinking about data, how to collect data, think about your data governance, and do that first before you start actually developing these AI tools. So we do need to increase the amount of data we collect. We need to be smarter at how we collect it, how we save it over time. And we need to collect the data having AI in mind. So we need to, in the past, usually the data was collected in databases to be used by humans. And that is different from collecting data to be used by artificial intelligence. So we also need to not just collect more data, but maybe change our strategies on how we collect data so that in the future, both human and AI together can make good decisions while learning from that data.
To follow up on what you've just said, where is the greatest need for more data in the utility environment?
I would say I would probably, it's hard to pick one, so maybe I will mention two or three. Definitely electric measurements from the field. There's a lot of progress there. So we, as you know, we went from having SCADA measurements to adding synchrophasers, but we know that even synchrophasers are not, they cannot provide sufficiently good data for most of the application, especially if we're looking for higher frequency events. So recently we had development of point-on-wave devices that can measure signals with even higher precision, but they're still kind of just starting to be adopted. And I'm, just as a scientist, I want our scientists to have measurements that are as precise as possible. So I'm really hoping that in the future we will have more electrical measurements from the field, and that they will have much higher precision so that we can do more research. I am also, I would like to see more historical asset data. So a lot of, historically speaking, a lot of the asset databases were just collecting data that's true right now. So for example, if you replace transformer, they would put the information about the new transformer and forget about the old transformer that got replaced. But for us really to learn from the past, we need to know what happened to the old transformer that got replaced. We want to know how it failed, how long it lived, and all of that. And really, utilities only started collecting changes over time in the last 5 or 10 years. Like I've really only seen maybe the last 5 years of utility. It's really started with us being able to put data in the cloud and have data lakes and kind of track the changes to the database over time. But if you try to find history of assets that's older than 5 years, you hit the wall. There's not enough information. So that's kind of the two that kind of bother me that I would like to see. But I think we're on a good track. So many people around the country are working on this and making great progress. So I think it's a little bit of a waiting game where we kind of just have to wait until we collect enough data. But then we will be ready with all the tools to analyze that and have some really smart solutions for the future. Yeah.
Let me add a little bit of clarity to help the question earlier about the sort of the governance of a utility. So part of the challenge with the governance of a utility, this goes back to my days as CIO of Synergy from 2003-2010, where we had to issue something like 200 reports monthly to all kinds of agencies. So you got FERC and NERC that Tanya talked about. FERC doesn't really have a jurisdiction in Texas, but NERC does because all the utilities are NERC members, and then NERC is in charge of enforcing reliability standards per FERC. And then you got ERCOT, and you got the Texas PUC, and then you got the Texas Reliability Entity. And then don't forget that the governor really controls the Texas Reliability Entity and Texas PUC. So the governor's office has a role to play. And then you have the state of Texas environmental Texas Environmental Conservation Office. So all the programs that get funding from the state of Texas for green energy conservation, what have you, that's another entity to deal with. And then because Austin Energy in his fleet has nuclear, you have to deal with the Nuclear Regulatory Agency, NRC. And then because of all the pollution concepts of anything fossil fuel or uranium or what have you, you deal with the EPA, right? So that's sort of the landscape of who is on top of you, pulling your legs at any given moment. And then the city council is your board of directors. The city manager reports. The Austin Energy CEO, general manager reports to the city manager. So really, for intended purposes, the CEO of Austin Energy is the chief operating officer of Austin Energy. The city manager is the CEO of Austin Energy, who reports to the mayor and the board of directors, and the mayor is the chairman of the board, and the mayor pro tem is the vice chairman of the board. So very complicated.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So in any event, Tanya, go ahead, Johnny.
Comment on the data first. I think that when everything has to be digitalized. I mean, when the Library for Alexandria was became digital, there's a lot of more information. So you're right, Tanya. There's a lot of information that's laying around that hadn't been digitalized. So I think for that older data, it just have to be put in digital format, because if it's not in digital format, AI cannot read it. And of course, this
Yeah.
makes libraries digging through old books very, very important again. And I think the data will increase, as it enters the digital storehouses, if you will.
Hmm.
Unlike the universe that's creating data by itself. Remember that we have to create the data for AI and not the universe itself.
Yeah, let me ask Tanya a final question about something in particular. Tanya, how do you navigate the the choices of tools and architectures? A lot of people are talking about having sovereign AI infrastructure. You bring your own large language model, you host it in-house, or you host it dedicated privately in an infrastructure that is only for you through a third party, uh, or you actually are in the open market with anybody else in the cloud with OpenAI and Anthropic and so on. And how do you guys did it at Exelon, and how are you looking at doing it at Austin Energy? What are your thoughts on that in terms of, you know, I tell people that AI has the challenge of turning everybody into a Hotel California guest, meaning if you know anything about the song, you can check in, but you can never check out. How do you manage control of your data?
Yeah, that's, for utilities, it's a really big concern. We do need to protect our data. So utilities, I think in general, just have their own private large language models that are not open to the outside world,
Hmm.
which in some cases may mean that you have a model that was trained in 2024 and you're still using that. It is a challenge keeping it up to date if you don't have
Hmm.
constant access to what's openly out there. So we really, for electric utilities, we have to protect our data.
Hmm.
So that's the highest goal, and that's why we don't. I don't think that there's any utility that's using, open AI, and I do use it for my private stuff.
Hmm.
That's not work. I may go and ask it to help me write a thank you note to someone and stuff like that, but I wouldn't use it for work. We need to
Sure.
be very conscious about not putting any proprietary or confidential data into AI, which open AI, which can just go into the world.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Got it. Well, real quick, as we need to wrap up, tell us what's in front of you the next 6 months. What are you going to be working on and what's going on?
Yeah, I will be working on mastering my new job as a compliance manager at Austin Energy. Um, Being a manager is new to me, and in this first month I did find out that it's actually very challenging. So I think in the next 6 months I will definitely try to learn as much as possible about regulatory compliance and also work on my management skills and learn much more about Austin Energy. I have all of this information now about other utilities. I need to get back to Austin and kind of learn what's happening here locally.
Hmm.
Um, so that's my ambition for next 6 months. Just mastering this new job.
Well, congratulations on the switch.
Thank you.
Austin Energy is lucky to have you with all the excellent experience. So we look forward to keeping up with you. Johnny, final thoughts.
But I think it's always interesting because we're back to modeling. We're back to data.
Hmm.
We're in a place in science and time and history where data are very, very important. That's very, very new for the social world. Before
Hmm.
we would ask people questions. We would say, what's your opinion on this? We had a census that we looked at. I can do an entire census of America now without ever asking anybody anything. I can do an analysis of San Francisco if I have the data on shopping data, credit card data, what people buy, geography, the mobility data, and do logarithm and tell you everywhere people go. I could go to the Northeast and tell you how much whiskey Llewellyn drinks without ever talking to him.
Mm-hmm.
Because all of the data are there for me to look at what human beings do.
Mm-hmm.
This, and what's interesting about this situation is that you got to combine the physics models
Mm-hmm.
with the human models
Right.
in order to understand what's going on. The great book, The Signal and the Noise,
Mm-hmm.
pointed this out. There's a lot of noise in the signals, but there's
Mm-hmm.
nothing when it comes to humans. There's nothing
Mm-hmm.
like wisdom
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to making our decisions. So it's right at the center of safety for everyone, and we cannot let this field in the electric era move along like we've done in finance and saying that we have all the answers, because even physics does not have all the answers. But models really, really help us make
Yep.
decisions about the future.
Absolutely. Llewellyn, final thoughts.
I'm so taken with what Johnny has just said that I'd like to be totally associated with it, in return for which he could send me another one of those nice fruit baskets. Uh,
It is on the way.
I
All you
think
have to
Johnny is
do.
actually very right. I was going to say separately that what utilities need, and I think that AI is a tremendous blessing for them, but what they need additionally is a bunch of new ideas. We are at the limit of our ideas, and new ones are needed, and they will emerge, and they won't come from the data. They will come from human minds. So I think that's very, and it's a pleasure to be on with you, Tanya. Thank you so much for your wisdom.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Tanya. Johnny, take us away.
You got my address, Johnny?
Roll me up and smoke me when I die. If anyone don't like it, just look 'em in the eye. I didn't come here and I ain't leaving, so don't sit around and cry. Roll me up and smoke me when I die. Go out and build a big old fire. Roll me in the flames for about an hour. Then take me out and twist me up and point me toward the sky. Roll me up and smoke me when I die.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, take care.
Have a great week.
Bye-bye.
Johnny, we'll see you in 30 minutes. 15.
All right, okay, I'll do it. Yeah, see you in 30. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.